Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1.
Northwest Liberty News, picking the lock on the shackles of tyranny.
Machines are going to fail, and the system's going to fail.
The past is past, the future's now.
Don't look at me. I think these people are completely nuts.
Sometimes trouble just follows a man.
There is another organism on this planet that follows the same pattern. Do you know what it is? A virus.
Can't you stop your lips from flapping for 2 little minutes?
It's because I'm white.
I'm a man. I'm sensitive. I need to feel loved. I need to be desired.
I'm rapidly becoming a big underground success in this town.
It's a question of methods. Everybody wants results, but nobody wants to do what they have to do to get them done.
And now, coming to you live from Kalispell, Montana, brought to you by Northwest Liberty News, it's Montana Gazette Radio with your host, James White. All right, I'm your host, James White. This is Montana Gazette Radio. Thanks so much for joining me here on this 11th day of November 2020. We're coming to you live here from Kalispell, Montana. And at this point, we're broadcasting on numerous different platforms, about 7 or 8 different platforms, including Blog Talk Radio, YouTube, Facebook, D-Live, Twitcher, and others. And we certainly do appreciate you being with us today on the broadcast. We have a returning guest here on this show, Randy Pinocci. Commissioner Randy Pinocci is joining us here today. Commissioner Pinocci, as I stated, has been here. I've been on the show numerous times, especially on the EIV radio broadcast, the previous broadcast of the show in EIV radio. And we've broken a lot of stories here on the show, he and I. And we always appreciate having Commissioner Pinocci here with us on the show. He recently penned an article, an op-ed that we posted here on the Montana Daily Gazette, and we'll bring that up here in a moment. But Commissioner Pinocci is going to be here today and talk about the upcoming 2021 legislative session. We have a tremendous opportunity here in Montana to sort of put a conservative flavor, I guess you could say, on legislation coming up for years to come if we do it properly. And I know Commissioner Pinocci thinks about these things deeply and has a lot of great insight about those, and we're delighted to have him on the show today. So without further delay, we're going to bring him on the broadcast with us, and we're going to welcome him to the show. Welcome to the show today, Commissioner Pinocci. Thanks so much for joining us here on Montana Gazette Radio.
Good morning, Jim. Great to be here.
Always great to have you on, sir. Always great to have you on. First of all, before we kick things off here, give me your 30,000-foot view of what's going on here. Since last time we've talked, the election, of course, has occurred. It seems to me, from all indications, that there could be widespread corruption or voter fraud. I'm not there. All I'm going by is the same reports that you're reading. It seems to me that in some cases, apparently, there's more people that even live in the area that are casting votes. We find out that some of these votes, thousands of them, only have Joe Biden filled in for president, and then nothing else is filled out after that. So there's some shenanigans going on, Commissioner. I don't know, I don't pretend they don't call me and let me know everything, of course. So I'm speculating much like everybody else, but it looks to me like some shenanigans went on during the recent election, and we're seeing the fallout from that. So if you can, just let's kick that off. Let's kick it off that way, if you don't mind, Commissioner. Give us your overall view of what's going on here in this whole election fiasco that's been going on for like about a week now.
Well, I think the best indication that we have problems is our commander-in-chief, Donald Trump, says there is. So we need to listen to that pretty carefully. He is still the president of the United States, and I fully expect him, if he has an indication that there is voter fraud, I expect him to look into it, and we need to get it corrected. If we find there is, I'm going to support Trump on what he says we need to do. If we're able to show voter fraud in a state, I think that state has to take responsibility to do for this nation the right thing, which could be a new election, say in Pennsylvania or possibly Georgia, if they can show that there's problems that the state failed to look over correctly. We do know that there's a sworn affidavit from a postal worker that says that ballots that came in late that should have been sent back were backdated. That's very serious. And if it's enough to...
Hi, this is James White from Montana Gazette Radio. Thanks so much for joining me here today on the show.
Important.
Hi, this is James White from Montana Gazette Radio. Thanks so much for joining me here today on the show. I'm trying to load up your webpage here, and I actually hit the wrong button. But please continue. Sorry about that. My mistake.
And then we're got to look at what Montana could do to support these type of concerns. And we have this legislative session in front of us with a supermajority of Republicans. Montana has an opportunity here to pass laws that would cut down on voter fraud as we see it unfold in other states. We could start by having stricter punishments for those who are caught doing voter fraud, mandatory 1 year in prison. We could make it where we take a look at these opportunities that Democrats took to commit voter fraud and change the laws in Montana. Ballot harvesting, I think, is very dangerous for voter fraud. Montana could pass a law this session that says that won't be allowed in Montana. I think we should take a serious look at that. Absentee ballots are just not as secure as coming in and voting in person. I took a class to be a ballot watcher, okay? So I could take part in watching how the elections go in my hometown. I didn't actually do it because people were uncomfortable thinking that the guy that was watching the ballots is an elected official, but I took the class. And I want listeners to hear this pretty carefully. And Rena Moore was teaching it, the elections officer in Great Falls, and I asked her in front of about 20 or 30 people attending the class to be a poll watcher, to be an official to watch over elections. I asked her, I said, if someone comes in and they don't have a driver's license, do I let them vote? And she said, yes. I was a little shocked at that. She went on to say they have to produce a bill that they pay a utility like natural gas or electric. They got to be able to show you that. Well, I had to be clear. If they don't have an electric bill or gas bill and want to vote because they failed to have a driver's license, do I still let them vote? And she paused and said, yes. Well, maybe we need to make that law in Montana a little more clear. You have to have a photo ID to vote. You have to show that you're registered to vote at an address in your correct district. And we've had problems in Cascade County. Roger Hagan, who served in the legislature, had a mailbox in front of an empty field lot, claimed he lived there, was registered to vote there, and won his campaign and served in the legislature and never lived in that district in his life. He lived in an apartment outside of the district. I want to say he ran in House District 19 and won when he actually lived in House District 23. This is illegal. Notarized complaints were turned into Rena Moore's office, and who handles policing that is the county attorney. I went to see the county attorney, and he says, I don't have time to mess around with this. I have more important work to do. I have a murder I've got to look at. I've got a rape I've got to look into, and I'm just not going to look into this.
Well, Commissioner,
that happened just a couple of years ago.
Let me interject just for a second. I had talked to my friend yesterday in Bozeman, and he had just moved from his one facility to a new facility. When in his new facility, he got 6 absentee ballots in his mailbox, none of them for who was supposed to be there. So he went back to his old facility and said, I wonder if there's any in my old. So he goes by his old location that he where he has his business before, and there were 11. That's right, 11 absentee ballots in the mailbox, and they had all different names on them. This is happening as far as I'm. This is happening in Montana, Commissioner. It's got to be happening across the country. I think they just flooded They flooded my wife hasn't lived in her house in Michigan, in her mom's house, in over 20 years. She got an absentee ballot there. She got a ballot that's sent to her for there in Michigan. I mean, it's just it's widespread voter fraud and corruption, I think, when you break it all down to the brass tacks.
Well, Montana has the opportunity to say, look, we can change the laws on absentee ballots. Now, folks, we have to have absentee ballots for, say, our military who are overseas. Perhaps somebody that's in a retirement home and they're they can't get out of the bed. We have to make absentee ballots available to people who qualify. But I think to give absentee ballots out to everybody, the proof is we can't do it correctly, because we see absentee ballots showing up to homes that shouldn't have it at all or didn't even request it. That proves the system doesn't work. Montana has an opportunity in this legislative session to change those laws, set an example for the rest of the country to follow. And while we listen closely to what Trump finds, and if Trump steps down and says we have to get behind Biden, fine. If Trump says no, we have to correct this problem, that's where I'm going to stand by Trump.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Well, thankfully, we have the widespread voting fraud really hasn't been as bad here in Montana. But I tell you one thing that really is pretty discouraging, and I think is another thing that we need to discuss during the next legislative session, is the closed primaries. That throws a whole monkey wrench in the works when someone that's not even a Republican crosses over in the primary and votes, and they don't. All they're really looking to do is they're just looking to screw things up. They're not looking to do anything positive. What they're looking to do is they're looking to vote for the other guy that's not conservative. They're looking to vote for the rhino, and we've seen that happen a lot of times. I think we need to close these elections down, and you can only vote in a Republican primary if you're a registered Republican. I don't think that's preposterous or outrageous to make that request of the legislature coming up in 2021. You have any thoughts on that?
Oh, I do. And Jim, when people talk about open and closed primaries, a lot of the listeners don't understand. More importantly, we never seem to interview a race that lost due to having open primaries. Today, Commissioner Pinocci can tell you that I have only run primary races. And there are a lot of listeners who don't understand what a primary is. There's really two elections, one in June and one in November. What happens in June is if you have 3 or 4 Democrats that want to run for a seat, they have to decide which is the winner to proceed to the general election. And we know by looking at the numbers that less than half the voters even care about primaries. Folks, the primaries are just as important as the general, and here's why. In my race for Public Service Commission, there were 4 people running for Public Service Commission. 4. And let me tell you why I filed. One of the biggest reasons I filed was a failure of our Secretary of State, Corey Stapleton. My opponent, Rob Cook, goes to file for District 1 Public Service Commission, but he didn't live in that district. He lived in Brad Johnson's district. And I called the Secretary of State's office and I said, he doesn't qualify. He doesn't live in the correct district. Now, when they looked into it, the press got a hold of Rob Cook, and he said, oh, no problem. I'm going to move in with a girlfriend in Shelby. Now, it costs $1,100 to file for office for Secretary of State. You've got to write a check for $1,100 just to file. I called Stapleton's office back, and I said, you've got to keep the $1,100. He's got to file again under the new address and prove he lives there with a driver's license, which he has to have changed with his new address. He has to go buy a new driver's license, explain that he's moved. And Corey Stapleton, he publicly said, well, we don't have to do that. We're just going to let him run. And here Stapleton gets on the news saying, well, I'm advising President Trump to step down. Corey is not doing his job correctly in Montana. So I filed, and I had to explain to everybody what happened. Now, I won for various reasons. Some people said, hey, that Rob Cook shouldn't even be running. He should have been disqualified because he didn't live in the district. But when you're out there in a primary, you have to say, here's the difference between my opponent and I for the public to make a choice. Pinocci focuses on the voting record. I've never done a negative ad. Now, what happens is the Democrats are able to say, well, look, we don't want Pinocci. He's too Republican. And when you vote in the primary, you only can vote Democrat or Republican. But certain Democrats will say, because we don't want Pinocci, we're going to vote for, well, the liberal was Rob Cook. Hundreds of votes went to Rob Cook that were Democrats. So how do we stop that, folks? Well, here's the argument. Republicans should decide who their Republican candidate's going to go to the general, not Democrats. So here's how we fix the problem. We pass a law that says if you're a Republican, you got to register as a Republican, and in the primary, that's all you can do is vote Republican because you're registered. You don't even get the ballots for the Democrat, okay? Or when you go in to vote, you can only get the sheet for the Republicans because you're a registered Republican. What this does, folks, is it prevents the Democrats from making the choice on what Republican you get in the primary. And that's more fair. Now, by the way, many states have passed this law because what happens is when there's a Republican running against a Republican, the Democrats look at the two and realize that one Republican votes for the Democrats more than the other, and they'll cross over and vote in that primary. I have lost an election to Jess O'Hare by 200 votes, and we could identify over 600 or 700 votes that went to Jess O'Hare from the Democrat side. We could see it. And I lost that election, and the Democrats decided that for me. So you are actually interviewing a candidate who lost based on not having closed primaries. And folks, we absolutely need to pass that law in Montana.
Well, another thing, I think, Commissioner, of course, it's been really brought to the surface recently. I don't think anybody realized the situation until the whole coronavirus thing kicked off. But it seems to me in some parts, I don't know if it's in every county, but in some counties, the health officer has godlike powers when it comes to, or dictator-like powers when it comes to, declaring a pandemic, as in recently. This person that's the health officer isn't elected by the folks. It's an unelected position. I think that we need to, my view, we need to, and I know there's legislation, I think, in the pipe from what I understand from talking to the legislators I know. I think we're going to try to correct that situation. But do you see that being an issue, Commissioner, where the health official or health officer of a county sort of assumes, I guess, dictator-like powers? They can pretty much make proclamations, and we're supposed to follow everything they say, and they're not even elected. Is that something that you see as being an issue that we need to address here coming up in 2021?
Oh, I have a fantastic example of what happened right here in Great Falls. People don't realize how popular gun shows are in Montana. There are over 50 gun shows a year, one every single week. Actually, 2 or 3 weeks have 2 gun shows in 2 different areas. So let's say you were a gun show buff and you just love gun shows. Every weekend there's one somewhere for you to go in Montana. Actually, I'm going to give you guys a little hint to save some money. A gun show can cost like $5 to go to, but if you join the Weapon Collector Society for $35, you get to go to all the gun shows for free, and you can go every day, every weekend, and you never have to pay. It's a great way to save money. Well, Great Falls was having their gun show in April. I want to say it was about April. The pandemic was just starting to become widespread. Well, there was a panic on ammunition, which we all know is real. We can't even buy it now. And in April, I understand that there was a complete semi-load of ammunition heading to Great Falls for the gun show. The Great Falls Gun Show is one of the largest in the state. Thousands of people attend, over 500 tables. And I'm highly involved with the gun shows because I try to organize people to go there who are running for office and explain their view on the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment has nothing to do about hunting, folks. It's all about self-defense. and of protecting our country and our property, and to stand up against a government who may take your right to vote away. Okay, that's the reason for the Second Amendment. This is a great platform for everyone to talk about. This gun show was turning into a monster. It could have been the largest attended gun show in the history of Great Falls. People were starting to come in, and they kept asking, are we going to cancel the show? Are we going to cancel the show? They actually had to run a TV ad that said the Great Falls Gun Show is moving forward. It's moving forward. People were starting to arrive at hotels. They brought trailers where they had all the things they were going to sell at the gun show, whether it was guns or backpacks, and 500 tables, folks. And a guy shows up from the county the day before the show and says, nope, we're canceling everything. Wait a minute. You can't do that. People have driven across the country to be at this show, to attend it, to sell products. We have a semi here. Send them all home. We lost millions of dollars of business in Great Falls. Hotels lost out on hundreds of rooms because this guy from the county shows up and says, I don't think it's safe. While other towns like Kalispell just did their gun show a couple months ago, no problems, but yet the largest one in the state was canceled with the situation exactly what you're talking about, Jim.
Well, we've Commissioner Pinocci, we're going to come up here and take a break here in just in a couple of minutes. But one of the things that you mentioned, this is the Second Amendment so important for tyranny against our government. I have an issue here, not issue, but I have a webpage pulled up from Montana Daily Gazette. It says payback. Tweets of Trump supporters being archived for future revenge. So multiple people on the left have come out now and said that they're making lists of people that supported Trump, and they're going to come after us and come and get us when they get power again. So it seems to me these days, Commissioner, it's not just your self-defense for people that's trying to break into your home or anything like that. Really, literally, there are people up in the government, AOC and others are saying now that people that helped Trump, quote unquote, ruin the country or whatever they say, they now are going to be on a list and they're going to come after us. I think we need our Second Amendment to protect us against these type of people as well, not just criminals in our neighborhood or in our cities. Any thoughts on that? I mean, that's preposterous. They're making a list of conservatives to come after. I mean, any thoughts on that? It enrages me.
Well, the thoughts that we have to look at is the proof that's in front of us. Look, folks, when I ran for office against Jess O'Hare, the retaliatory move that the Democrats did was obvious. I got a letter that I was being audited from the Democrat governor, which was Schweitzer, and he signed it days after I filed against Republican Jess O'Hare, who votes with the Democrats more than he votes with the Republicans. Political Practices filed 3 complaints against me where they manufactured evidence. And those cases are still active today. And the reason I think it's hilarious is I can prove that the evidence was manufactured. And we got a phone call, and this is before Jeff Mangan, back in the Modal days when Modal was running Political Practices, and says, well, it's been a year. We're willing to settle for, $200. And I had to hire an attorney. And I said, no, I'm not going to do it. And they said, no, you should do this. I said, no, because if I settle, they'll turn around in the press and say Pinocci admits fault. I want to go to court and show they manufactured evidence. So now those cases are several years old. And the reason they want to go to court is because I can prove they manufactured evidence as retaliatory movement because I'm a Republican. Folks, this has been happening for years. To say it's going to happen again, of course it is. We just look at the evidence that we have, and there are many Republicans that served in office that can tell you they've been treated retaliatory. So is it going to continue? Of course. Is it going to get worse? Probably. This isn't some sort of theory that might happen. Folks, it's been going on. We deal with it.
Well, what do we let's kind of go a little bit more. We're going to take a break here, and then we're going to take some callers. We've got some callers on the line here, but I'm going to ask you this question here, and then we got a few callers that are waiting here, and we'll bring them on after we take a quick commercial break. Energy wise here in Montana, I think we have the capacity here as far as with the resources that we have. We can become, maybe net energy independent here. I don't know if we have all of it covered. I know we have some coal capability, a lot of it, and also we have plenty of resources that are under the ground in oil and other things. Do you think we're looking into a potential? I mean, with Gianforte being the governor now, Commissioner Pinocci, are we looking at all of these things we talked about, all the mining, the timber? Now they've come out. Finally, a consortium of knuckleheads, I guess, got together finally and said, maybe for the last 20 years we've been managing the forests wrong. Maybe we should start cleaning out the dead wood. You think? We've been saying that for how long now? I think there's some real sweeping changes, and they're all in the positive direction. Do you think one of them is going to be much, more energy production here from the state of Montana? You being with the PSC, I know it's probably something that's on your mind at least.
Well, that's a wide subject, and I think a good place to start is this. I have never seen a majority of Republicans in my lifetime with a Republican governor that we have today. So here's what this means, folks. We can really, as Republicans, introduce law and pass whatever we want. Now, the legislative sessions really starts in a few days. Bills are going to start to be turned in December. They're being written right now. I can't stress enough, this is the Republicans' opportunity in Montana to do some very good work. But let's not introduce silly bills. Let's introduce bills that are really good Republican bills. And a person may say, how do you qualify that, Pinocci? Well, what are the Republican platform messages that we have? Smaller government, lower taxes. These are two big messages. So we have a chance to pass law to do those goals. There are issues that we've been trying to get done, like closed primaries. I'm sure we're going to see some bills on the Second Amendment that will allow us to carry in a restaurant that serves alcohol. And a person will say, we can't have a gun where they serve alcohol. Folks, it's called open carry. When Montana became a state, if you walk into a tavern or a bar and your gun is on your hip, that is legal. It has been and was put in law when Montana became a state. But yet they say the concealed carry guy who has the training and the background check can't carry concealed, while the open carry can carry in a bar. Nobody explains it that way. So the concealed carry says, I need to be able to go to a restaurant, and if they happen to, serve alcohol, I should be able to carry because the open carry guy can. Well, okay, let's change that law. They've been battling that for years. This is the session we can fix it. All right, so let's talk about Christian value stuff, right? A girl has to get written permission to get a tattoo, written permission to get a piercing, but she can have an abortion and the parent doesn't get notified. This is our chance to change that law, right? Now, let's talk about energy. Montana does not produce enough electricity to even provide electricity for Montanans. A lot of times, especially when it gets very cold, we have to go outside of the state and buy that electricity to serve Montana. Electricity should go for about $30 a megawatt. We've paid up to $900 a megawatt. Then they turn around and say to the Public Service Commission, oh my God, Pinocci, it's an emergency. We got to raise the rates. People, I have two dams, Hepkin Reservoir and Gibson Reservoir, that have no turbines on them. I have talked with Greenfield Irrigation District, and they are wanting to put a turbine at Gibson Reservoir, which is on the Sun River, oddly enough, a few miles from my home. I live in Sun River. And if the legislature will pay for it, Greenfield will sign an agreement, that they will pay all the money back to the state with interest. And I will generate a base load power that I badly need. What is base load? Wind and solar is on and off all the time. Base load means it's on all the time. We have a shortage of base load energy. The legislature could make that decision and work with greenfield irrigation to get us up and running on that. Hepkin Reservoir is owned by Northwest Energy. I'm sure if the legislature went to Northwest Energy and said, we'll give you the money to install that turbine, Northwest Energy would be happy to pay it back, and the ratepayers will be locked in to have a rate that's close to $30 a megawatt. And what's wrong with Montana being an exporter of energy, right?
Hear, hear.
And we can make some money. If we do, my friend, this is so important. Listeners, listen carefully. If Northwest Energy can sell electricity at a profit, the law says they got to share it with the ratepayers, and then maybe I can bring your price of electricity under $30 a megawatt. Is everybody listening to me? If I could sell enough electricity out of state, I could have the lowest rates in the country if I could just make Montana an exporter of energy instead of an importer. And I'll tell you, folks, when the wind stops blowing from California to Michigan, the price of electricity can go up 10 times or 20 times. You don't want to be buying electricity when that happens.
Well, Commissioner, we're going to take a quick commercial break here, but the phone calls are piling up on the phone line, and we're going to be taking those calls here just after these brief messages here with Commissioner Randy Pinocci from the Montana Public Service Commission. Before we take a break, Commissioner, do you have any websites you'd like to give out, any email addresses, anything like that for the folks?
Well, I want everybody, all the listeners out there, if you're doing Facebook, I'm on Facebook with the Public Service Commission page for Pinocci, private Public Service Commission Pinocci, where you can friend me. On my Public Service Commission website, you can only like me. So get involved with me there, because I'm sending out, like this radio show will be posted. I got like 2,000 friends on Facebook, and we'll send them this radio show. And go to Montana Daily Gazette website, James White, because everything is posted there, and updates to what we're doing will be posted there. So keep in close touch with James White, please.
Pinocci, thanks so much. We'll be back after these brief messages here. I'm going to go ahead and mute your line, and then we'll be back, folks, with Commissioner Pinocci, and we'll take some phone calls here after these brief commercial messages. The call-in line is 563-999-3617, 563-999-3617. You can see it right in the center of the screen there. We'll be back after these brief messages with Randy Pinocci. If you like classic cars, exceptional service, and a money-back guarantee, then the Corner Shop in beautiful downtown Kalispell is the place for you. Whether it's an oil change, engine diagnostic, suspension work, or brakes all around, the Corner Shop has you covered. With expert technicians and a free consultation on all services, you can't go wrong with the Corner Shop. Did I mention the classic cars? While you're waiting for your expert service to be performed, take a stroll through the showroom to see Kalispell's smoothest collection of classic cars. The Corner Shop is conveniently located at 1212 South Main, just south of the courthouse. The Corner Shop is open Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. till 5 p.m., so drop by for an appointment or call 755-7777. That's 755-7777. The Corner Shop, Kalispell's full-service auto repair facility.
PatriotPrepared.com carries the leading brands of storable food from Legacy and Heaven's Harvest. Patriot Prepared. Our name says it all. We're dedicated to empowering you to be self-reliant and confident in any circumstance. Whether you want to be prepared in the event of an emergency or you're an outdoor sports enthusiast, PatriotPrepared.com has prepackaged meals and kits for your entire family. Legacy, Heaven's Harvest are known for high-quality, great-tasting, GMO-free, nutritious food with no chemical preservatives. Simple to prepare, easy to store, gluten-free and organic high-quality nutrition options with a 25-year shelf life. You can't beat the feeling of being food secure when you need it most. So go to PatriotPrepared.com right now to pick up your supply of high-quality storable food for your family, because it makes good sense to be prepared. That's PatriotPrepared.com.
Okay, folks, if you want to support this broadcast, you can do so by supporting our sponsors. PatriotPrepared.com is one of our main sponsors there, and if you're living in the Kalispell area and you need some car repair work done, I'd highly suggest you go down to the corner shop and talk with Dan down there and the fine folks at the corner shop, and they'll help you with all your car repair needs. If you want to check out what we got going on, you can go to MontanaGazetteRadio.com or MontanaDailyGazette.com. And, of course, you can always go to the flagship northwestlibertynews.com. We're going to bring Commissioner Pinocci back on the line with us here, and we have a lot of phone calls that are piling up here. Commissioner, do you want to take phone calls right now? Are you ready to do that, sir? Or is there something else that you want to bring up before we moved on to the phones? Oh, wait, no, you should be there. Commissioner, are you there?
I am. I got to talk to the listeners a little bit more about energy, because we hadn't finished that subject. One more point,
Sure.
We'll move on to the calls.
Okay, very good.
Now, what I try to do, folks, is teach somebody about the Public Service Commission each time I do a show that you haven't heard before. So I need you all to listen carefully, because I'm going to teach you what goes on, and you're going to be a little better able to talk about energy in Montana. So please listen close. When, let's say, a big wind turbine project comes to Montana and they want to put up 100 wind turbines, they come to the Public Service Commission and we discuss what they're going to charge for their rate. Now, they're going to want something like $50 or $60 or $90 a megawatt, and we have to say, well, a hydroelectric dam or a gas-fired plant might sell it for 30 or 40, so to be competitive, you got to be down there. And, well, they don't like that. Here's what I want you to be careful, folks. They try to do a contract of 15 or 20 years or 25 years to guarantee them that high dollar rate. And the Public Service Commission in the past has signed off on those, which means we're locked into that high electricity price for 15 or 20 or 25 years. Then if the price of electricity drops or somebody comes in with a lower deal, we've signed a contract with this other group for the high price of electricity. Well, what's happening is people are starting to figure that out. So they tell Pinocci when he's running, you got to get away from those contracts or take us out 20 years. You got to stop doing that. Well, they're right. All right. So what we can do in the legislature is the legislature could pass a law that says a contract can't be longer than 5 years or 3 years. And a listener may say, well, that's not fair. We can't do that. Folks, other states have done that. Idaho has done that. Washington has done that. Montana has the Republicans in place where we can shorten those contract lengths by law. Then when they come to the Public Service Commission, I can say, I'm sorry, Montana law says your contract length can't be more than 5 years or 4 years. That's up to the legislature. Folks, you need to get a hold of your legislature and say Pinocci needs that tool in the Public Service Commission, because the Public Service Commission can't make law. I depend on the legislature to fix those problems. You have to get a hold of your legislators and say, this is what I need, shorter contract lengths. So get that done for me, folks. Okay, I'm ready for some calls.
Okay, folks, we got lots of calls piling up here. We're just going to take them in the order that they came in. And although I don't think I have to probably say it with this crowd, the rules of the phone call-in are you don't have to agree with myself or Commissioner Pinocci. No problem there. Just be respectful. Don't be abusive. And no cursing. This is not a vulgar show, so we don't use vulgarity. Other than that, pretty much you let it go. Let it go. If you don't agree, you don't agree. That's all good. Let's take the first call here, and we will welcome them to the show. Caller, you are live on the broadcast. Please state your first name and what city in Montana you're calling from. That's you, caller. Go ahead. Caller? Hello? Okay. Go ahead, say something. If you're on the line here, go ahead and speak. We can hear you. We can hear you breathing, I think. Okay. We're going to put this person back on hold, and then we're going to go ahead and go to the next call. Okay, caller, you are on the line. You're live on the air. Please state your first name and the city you're calling from. Maybe they've just stepped away from the phone. Hello, caller? Go ahead.
This is Dave.
Hello?
From Polson, Montana.
Who's it, Steve?
Dave.
Dave.
David from Polson, Montana.
Dave from Polson. Thanks, Dave from Polson, for calling in. Do you have a question for Commissioner Pinocci?
Yes, Mr. White and Commissioner Pinocci, thank you for taking my call. And my question to Mr. Commissioner Pinocci is, tell me, if you were Secretary of State, how would you fix the problem of this voter fraud?
Okay, there it is, Commissioner. If you were Secretary of State, how would you fix this problem with voter fraud is the question.
All right, this is a darn important question. People, voter fraud has happened and does happen in Montana, and there was a large investigation back with Conrad Burns. And the reason I have such a good amount of experience with it, I was Conrad Burns' statewide director when he lost to John Tester. On a reservation, people showed up, and it went something like this. You get on a bus, we'll take you to breakfast, and then we'll go vote. We get back on the bus, we'll go to the casino. We're going to pay you $45 with a check, and you can then get on the bus at lunchtime, and we'll go vote again. Then, as they're taking them back to the casino, they say, we got another check for $45, and at around dinner time, we'll go vote again. Folks, this happened. A book's been written, Arrow in the Heart, by Chris Cortlander, and they got copies of the canceled checks that were flooded throughout the reservation.
Had him on my show.
And you can see photocopies of them. Well, when you went to the Secretary of State's office, they said, well, we don't have any jurisdiction over the reservations. We can't have a poll watcher there. Well, we can, and we tried. And here's what happened. The tribal police approached the poll watcher and said, what are you doing here? Well, we're a poll watcher. They'll say, well, you're parked illegally outside, and we're going to have to take you to our office. And, well, I don't want any trouble, sir. I can go move the car. No, you're coming with us. And then when the lady starts crying, they'll say, tell you what, if you leave the reservation right now, we'll forget the whole thing. Folks, this actually happened. I received those phone calls from the poll watchers when I worked for Conrad Burns as his statewide director. So now we've put the question to the Secretary of State how we're going to fix it. Well, I was asked if I was Secretary of State what I would do. This happened in Lewistown, and here was my answer. It's true. I don't have any authority to watch over the elections on the reservation unless the reservation allows me. But what I do have authority to do as Secretary of State is to announce the winner, count the votes. So here's what I would do. And I encourage us to be creative. And I think that's leadership. Pinocci would simply tell the reservations, look, I'm bringing in all my poll watchers. I'll bring in extra people. You're going to vote one vote. We're going to have an ID of some sort, whether it's tribal or driver's license. And you're going to allow us to do this, or I'm not going to announce the winner from the reservation, and you won't have anyone to send to Helena. Now, that's my suggestion to people that have been running as Secretary of State, but they kind of look at me like a deer in the headlights and just walk away from me. So when people elect you to office, they want you to lead. Now, of course, I would expect a lawsuit. I'm going to get a phone call from the Secretary of State in the next state and said, you have a duty to announce the winner. Sir, I have a duty to make sure the elections are done fairly. If I don't believe they are, then my duty is I'm not going to announce a winner. And that's my answer. And if somebody has a better suggestion, I'm all ears. Let's talk about it.
I think I lost a caller there, but caller, I hope that answered your question for you. You can certainly call back. Let me try to take the next call here. I'm going to swing back to the first call from previous that didn't answer. I'll give them another chance to come on the show. Caller, thanks. You're live on the air. Please state your first name and the city you're calling from. Caller, are you there? Okay. Maybe they stepped away from the phone. I'm going to go ahead and put them back on hold, and I'll swing back around to them again. Try them again. They've been on hold for quite a while. Okay, let's try the next one. Caller, you are live on the air. Please state your name and what city in Montana you're calling from.
Hi, this is Jeff Patterson.
Hi, Jeff.
Glasgow, Montana. Yeah.
Jeff, Glasgow.
How are you today?
Good. Thanks for calling into the show. You have a question for Commissioner Pinocci?
I do. I really enjoy the show. I think Commissioner Pinocci is opening a lot of eyes, and that's really a neat deal to look outside the box on energy, especially. So I'm really involved with natural resources. We farm and ranch up here, and used to own the stockyards. And, we do a lot of different things. Conservation district supervisor and Milk River watershed chairman for the Milk River here. So. And I think Randy brought up some great issues and points there as far as the natural resources and deal. And I'm really excited that we have a governor that recognizes the value of our natural resources. They call us a treasure state for a reason, right? So it's not just to lock it away, but we have coal and timber and some of these, of course, agriculture and whatnot that we have coming down there. And I think a lot of the things that Randy was bringing up that brought to a point of the 10th Amendment, we have so much federal overreach in a lot what we do there. And I mean, if we were going to sell coal to like Israel, cleanest coal in the world, and well, what a phenomenal idea there. How do we do that with the overreach and the oversight from the federal government for what 10th Amendment state rights are that are guaranteed by that? And, I think Greg is going to surround himself with some natural resource people. Who knows? I might be able to be on a round table or a kitchen table with that. He'll put together a great crew. But I'm really looking forward to that and how this new legislature, like Randy was talking about, is going to work with the Public Service Commission. But could maybe Commissioner Randy Pinocci talk a little bit about the 10th Amendment and maybe some of the overreaches that the federal government has on our states' rights?
Well, before you answer that, Commissioner, thanks, caller. I'll put you on hold, and we'll bring him back after he gets done. I just want to say here before the Commissioner answers that question, we did a whole show on coal and Israel. We had photos of when Commissioner Pinocci visited Israel, and I don't remember the name of the actual title of the episode, but that's been covered by us, I think, here on this program. And I think that was a really good show that we did, Commissioner. I think that really laid a lot of stuff out. But do you want to go ahead and pick that question up from the caller about the 10th Amendment?
Well, boy, this is a great question, and we got some problems with the state of Washington, where they're saying we're so against coal that they are not going to allow Montana to ship coal out of its port. This is an example of a state using their state rights to affect Montana's well-being and our ability to ship out coal and make money. So Tim Fox files a lawsuit with the state of Wyoming against Washington because Wyoming ships their coal on train and winds up in Washington. So Wyoming and Montana are affected by this problem the state of Washington has done. Okay, if the state of Washington do that, here's what Pinocci turned around and said. When you have your shipping container get off a ship and it goes on a train and it has to rail through Montana, we're going to add a 20% tax to it. Or if a semi has to show up from Washington to drive through Montana, we'll tax that. Now, that's not a real popular point of view, but we have to become inventive to skirt these problems. And actually, this type of states' rights issue happened during the Civil War. It really was a war over states' rights. And we're actually seeing this battle between Washington, Montana, and Wyoming unfold right before our eyes. So Pinocci wants to get inventive, just like Pattison says, we got to think outside the box. So I'm sitting down with Not Afraid from Crow Reservation. I call him Chief Not Afraid. He's an elected official. And AJ Not Afraid is working on the idea that we could have a port in Washington that's on tribal land. And we'll have a coal port there, and the state of Washington has no say because they're a sovereign nation.
Didn't we cover that?
And that's one way to skin that cat on coal shipments. And I'm suggesting that the tribe own the port. And actually, we've done a radio show with James White. And James, didn't AJ say that very thing on your show?
That's what I was going to say. I think we had Chief Not Afraid on the show, and I think he mentioned that very thing that you're talking about now. For sure.
Well, the 10th Amendment, I guess the single point there, the 10th Amendment was clearly show the balance of power between federal and state governments as established by the Constitution. All right? Now, here's where Jeff Pattison is absolutely correct that this is going to be an issue. If Biden wins, he has said he's going to close down coal. Folks, if we shut every coal production plant that makes electricity in the United States, the price of electricity is going to increase. Commissioner Pinocci wants you to understand that is a promise and a fact.
You're right.
You should be very concerned about the outcome of this election if you're concerned about the price of electricity. Did Biden get up there when he ran for office and said, if I'm president, I'm going to increase the electric bill across the United States? He should have said that, and Trump should have said, if Biden wins, that's exactly what's going to happen. And folks, they really didn't talk about it much, but I'm talking about it right now. And let me tell you something. I need people like Jeff Pattison with that attitude, with the ability to take an idea that's out of the box and be working with the governor. I need people like that on a committee on natural resources, and I'm hoping that Greg Gianforte will choose people for that think just like Jeff Pattison. I need a team of those people. Folks, we have over 200 countries on this planet. Over 100 coal-fired plants are being built today. None in the United States, and Biden can't control that. Let me tell you why. A lot of countries don't have rivers big enough to produce electricity. A lot of countries will never be able to have a nuclear facility to generate electricity. Coal becomes an obvious resource for these countries to use. Montana flag. Our state flag has a pick and shovel on it for a reason. And we need to export our natural resources. And I'll have funding for schools. I'll have funding where I can lower our taxes, and I can also strengthen the U.S. dollar. And let me explain that. The number one problem in this country, in my opinion, is our national debt. We give suitcases of cash to countries all over the world to help them out. And then our value of our dollar lowers because we're printing more money, folks. We're trillions of dollars in debt. You should look at the national debt clock. You should look at the YouTube video. If you were to stack up the money that we're in debt, that we owe other countries, mostly China, it would almost go from the earth to the moon. If you don't believe me, look at the YouTube video on how big of a stack of $100 bills is the trillions of dollars we're in debt. It's bigger than the Empire State Building, folks. Now look, instead of giving suitcases of cash to these countries, we supply them our coal, and the suitcases of cash come to Montana. Then we create jobs and we pay taxes on that, and we're not printing more money, making our debt worse. This is the type of thinking we have to have. Now listen to this. When we give countries suitcases of cash and they buy coal, they buy it from Russia. Russia gets our suitcases of cash and builds up their military. That's the craziest thing I've ever heard. Now, I've been to Israel, and some people in Israel looked at me and said, Pinocci, when we give the suitcases of cash to Russia, they sell arms to Hezbollah and fire rockets over the wall at us. Folks, we got to get smarter.
I'm looking at the national.
I believe Pattison is going to listen to this, and I believe he's going to say, for crying out loud, we need to do these types of things.
Well,
some common sense, folks. That's what I need.
He's back on the line here. We're going to have. Does that answer your question, Jeff? And we got the debt clock up here, 27 trillion, 237 billion, 377 million, and the hundreds of thousands is moving so fast I can't keep up with it. So we're over $27 trillion in debt right here. I have the U.S. debt clock right on the screen, Commissioner. You can't see it probably from where you're at unless you're watching this on on YouTube. But yeah, it's 27 trillion. That number is almost like a comedy. It's like a cartoon number because it's so huge. It's insurmountable. I mean, the unfunded liabilities that we're looking at here are in the hundreds of trillions. Unfunded, $155 trillion in unfunded liabilities. 155 trillion with a T, for crying out loud. Yeah, it's a big problem. Jeff, does that answer your question? Your question about the 10th Amendment?
Yeah. Commissioner Pinocci spoke that pretty well, and I really agree with him. I think he's on the right track here. I mean, natural resources is our state. That's the bottom line, what we have with DEQ and DNRC and fish and game and egg and livestock. I mean, it's all relative. It's all return on either you're a producer or you're a reducer, and I guess that's kind of where Montana is getting to be on the whole thing. Yeah. Common sense, sensibility. We don't want to wreck the environment or anything, but I think that's what Randy's talking about too. Is holistic, extraction and production of what we have. So I applaud him. I think he's on the right track. So thanks for the radio program, the opportunity to at least speak my mind a little bit, and thank you for your kind words, Commissioner Randy.
Well, I appreciate your call, Jeff. Thanks very much for calling in. Appreciate that. Okay, we have more calls on the line. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, one more point here.
Sure.
In China, as they burn coal to generate electricity, their stacks don't take out the particulate or the dangerous acids that go into the atmosphere. Now, I haven't been to China yet. I'm supposed to be going. I'm just busy. But they tell me that in the cities where coal is generating electricity, the particulate is so large, the ash that comes out of the stack, that it actually comes down the size of a snowflake, and that's why everybody has to wear a mask. Now, in Montana, our stacks have scrubbers in it and the ability to take all the acid and all the particulate out. When you go to a coal fire plant in Coal Strip and you see the smoke come out of that stack, that's not smoke, folks. That's water. The only thing coming out of those stacks is water and carbon dioxide, which is what plants use to grow. That's it. That's the only thing coming out of those stacks. Now, Montana's coal burns cleaner and hotter than almost any coal in the world, which means it has less particulate coming out of the stack. So if we're burning coal from Coal Strip, it's going to be cleaner than coal that other countries buy, say, from Russia. Now watch this, folks. We could have some strings attached. If I could get the U.S. government to say, okay, Pinocci's got a good point. Instead of giving them cash, we give them coal. We give the cash to Montana. We'll help the value of our dollar. We'll create jobs, and we prevent money going to Russia. But there's something else we can do, folks. Pinocci would try to volunteer a team of people to say, look, if you're going to burn our coal, you got to do it right. We're going to have to put the scrubbers in the stacks, so you're helping the environment. You got to meet certain levels of cleanliness in those stacks. We don't want acid spewing in the air. Folks, we're going to be in a much better position to guide those countries on those type of regulations to protect their people and the environment than if the United States isn't involved. Russia is just going to sell coal and encourage them to let the particulate and the acid go into the air. If the United States says you get our coal for free while they pay Montana for it, you've got to do it right. Tell me, if you're an environmentalist, would you rather do it Pinocci's way or shut down coal completely and let the Russians handle it?
Well, no, of course.
You think about that.
Yeah, it's cleaner. The coal is cleaner than it ever has been, and it's sort of a straw man argument to say that all this pollution is going into the air. I mean, it's just a trick. It's just a trick by environmentalists, man. They seem to be pretty good at that. We got another call coming in here. We got more calls on the line here, Commissioner. Let's take another call here and see if we can bring this person on. Been holding for quite a while. Thanks so much for calling in on the show today. You're live on the air. Please state your first name and the city you're calling from here in Montana.
Hello.
Hello.
Am I on?
You are on. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. This is Dale out of Great Falls, Montana.
Hey, Dale from Great Falls. How are you? Thanks for calling in.
Great. Randy, you're doing a great job. I really appreciate what you're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, he can hear
Can
you.
you hear me?
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, he can hear you.
Okay. All right. I grew up in the 50s, the 60s, and 70s, and all I heard was fear, fear, fear. The world was coming to an end. The world was coming to an end. The day would come and go, and then another guy would jump in yelling the world's coming to an end, and then Jonestown Massacre occurred, and everybody was they took their turn on yelling the world's coming to an end. And then Al Gore took over, and he was predicting that by 2004 Miami would be underwater, and New York and Miami would be underwater. Well, that time has come and gone, and Miami's not underwater. The New York is not either. When they got a high tide and also a little disturbance out in the ocean, some ocean water comes across Biscayne Boulevard on Miami Beach, not Miami, but Miami Beach, and it's always done that for years and years and years. Al Gore and the politicians claim that because of that, the oceans are rising. Well, I don't believe in dumping garbage in the ocean because I think that's wrong. That's very wrong to do. But everything's based on fear lately. And Al Gore and now Joe Biden, it's fear, fear, fear. Everything's fear-based, and that's how they're getting their way. What can we do here with this green energy? He wants to get on the line with this green energy with the rest of the world. What can we do?
Dale, let me ask you a question here to follow up with. You're talking about fear, fear, fear. Now we've got them coming out saying they're making lists of Trump supporters, that they're going to come after Trump supporters when they regain power again because we've helped enable Trump to destroy the country or whatever narrative, whatever false narrative they're floating. Let me ask you a question before we have Commissioner Pinocci answer that, Dale. How do you feel as a Montanan knowing that you're going to be put on a list if you support Trump and they're going to be coming after you, quote unquote, if they get in power? Any thoughts on that?
Well, let me explain to you. I was a Democrat. I'm 76 years old, and I was a Democrat all my life. And I called Nancy Pelosi, and I told her to get her head out of her rear end. You're not dragging this cat down the alley of socialism. And that's where we're heading towards socialism. I worked for Pilot Catastrophe out of Mobile, Alabama, and I worked Hurricane Andrew. They sent me from Houma, Louisiana, into Miami, and I talked to the Cubans. I invite people to go down there. I'd love to take them down and have the Cubans tell us about socialism. They were crying, telling me out of tears in my eyes, listening how they ran away from Castro and the socialism. And that's what we're going to have with my Democrat Party. I'm ashamed. I'm ashamed we call it Democrat. And we gotta fight back and let them come. Let them come because I'm ready.
I love that spirit. I'm going to put you on hold, Dale. Commissioner Pinocci, do you care to follow up with that?
Well, I'll tell you what. People need to be paying attention to some priorities here. We have a greater chance of a meteorite hitting the Earth, which happens all the time throughout our history, and wiping out half the Earth or the whole Earth, and we need to worry about global warming because of carbon, because that can happen naturally. Now, if a person says, oh, he shouldn't have said that, and there was a volcano called Tambora that erupted in 1815, and it changed world history. It was so severe that we pretty much lost an entire summer. And the carbon that went into the air was an amount that was so great that it surpasses any carbon we have in the air now. Folks, carbon being released is a natural event that a forest fire produces more carbon than all the coal plants in the United States just in Montana. And when I ran in 2015, and James White posted this flyer that I had, here's what I said. With the dead pine beetle trees, we can send the loggers in and make millions of dollars, turning that into plywood or lumber or wood pellets, depending on the condition of the wood, or we're going to have the worst forest fires in the history of Montana. And here's what they told me in the legislature. The Greenies and the Democrats said, Randy, those dead pine beetle trees need to fall over and grow mushrooms and produce fertilizer for the forest. I fired back and said, you're not going to have any forest because you're going to have the worst forest fire season in the history of Montana. And on top of that, you're going to release carbon in the air that's 1,000 times what the coal plants do. They didn't listen. 2016 forest fire season was bad. 2017, it's the worst we've ever seen. Folks, when are we going to use some common sense?
Dale, did that answer your question? Oh, let me take Dale off of. I think I got him still on hold. Let me bring him off here.
Yes, thank you very much.
You're very welcome, Dale. Thanks for calling in.
Well, I can go farther if we have time. Dale, would you like me to go a little farther? Ask me another question. I'm trying to be cautious of time.
Do you have a follow-up question, Dale?
Well, Randy?
Yes,
are you
sir.
there? Okay.
I am.
Look up the hottest temperature recorded on this earth. That temperature was recorded in 1913 in Death Valley.
That's right.
134 degrees above zero. That record has never been broken. The coldest temperature ever recorded was in Antarctica at the Russian Vostok Station in 1983, and that was 128 degrees below zero. That record hasn't been broken. So if we had this global climate change, and then don't get me wrong, I think the climate does change, absolutely, just naturally. But we'd have record here, record there, record all over the place, and we don't have it. We haven't broken that record since 1913. Come on, you guys. Let's use a little common sense, like you said, Randy. Anyway, thank you very much for listening.
Thanks, Dale.
Let's talk about this, Dale. If we really should be concerned about something, an EMP event from the sun is something we should be concerned about. Now, Germany is looking at this very seriously. So when they design power poles and they design communications with telephone, they're trying to do shielding to prevent a solar flare from disrupting communications, electrical, or utilities. Now, I've been on this show talking about a new power line that is so efficient that it leaks less electricity but can withstand a solar flare 100% more. It doubles the protection that we currently have. Folks, a solar flare isn't a matter of if it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. And James, tell us the date and how serious the one we had in the 1800s. Can you tell us?
I think it was like 1812, I believe, and that was that blew up the. I think we had the what are those called? The telegraph lines.
The Carrington event, I think, was 1859. People got out thinking it was daytime. Along the railways, where the communication lines traveled, they got so hot they burst trees into fire. Okay, they got red hot, right? And it was the telegraph offices that had those lines along the railway. And if we have an event like that, which is going to happen, folks, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. We are not prepared. These are things that we should be doing. The proper shielding for our utilities and communication, because that is going to happen again. And you know what the number one complaint at the Public Service Commission is when the power is out. Oddly enough, folks, the number one complaint is when the power is out, because they want dependable power. I need more baseload power in the country to make it more dependable. I need higher quality power lines. We have an expanding public, right? More people are going to be building. These are the things I need to focus on, these protections, on things that it happened. Naturally, we had an ice age, 400 feet of ice over my home, right? Just a few 100,000 years ago. Climate change is natural. They tell me the North and South Pole were in different locations. That's going to happen again, folks. And we're just going to have to roll with the punches. In the meantime, let me get prepared with what history tells us, okay? Let me improve the power lines. Let me do the proper shielding. And I have the ability, if I have a little help from the legislature, to make things better.
So you're right about the 1859, the Carrington event. I was thinking about the 1812 New Madrid earthquake when the Mississippi River actually flowed backwards. That's what I was thinking of, the New Madrid earthquake. But you're correct, the Carrington event, and it is just a matter of time before that happens again. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, and you're spot on with that, with as far as that's concerned. All right, we got another calls coming in. This person's been waiting for almost 30 minutes. Let's take this call here from this next caller. Caller, you're live on the air. Please state your name and what city in Montana you're calling from.
Yeah, hi. This is Ron, Great Falls.
Hi, Ron from Great Falls. How's it going? You've called in before, I think. Appreciate you calling in, Ron. Do you have a quick?
Yeah. Thanks for your show. Really, I'm a fan, and thank you, Commissioner Pinocci. Commissioner, do you think that now with Republican governor and a lot of conservative Republicans in the legislature, that we'll be able to do anything with the Salish-Kootenai Water Compact? And, of course, now we got Senator Deans's Montana Water Rights Protection Act that is a bad piece of legislation.
Commissioner Pinocci, the CSKT Water Compact, any thoughts on that coming up here and the future of it, or what's going to happen here with this new Republican legislature? Any thoughts?
In 2015, when I served as a legislator in House District 19, we had the Water Compact come before us, and I was absolutely adamant that we stopped it. If the Salish-Kootenai win this issue and they can make the case that the water is theirs, I said that we're going to have a lot of unintended consequences. For instance, they might sell the water out of state because they have the right to lease it, and water will have to stay in the river, and or it could be piped out. And I've had people say, oh, we've got it worked out, so they can't do that. Well, then I came back and I said, all right, if they say all the water's theirs and we give it to them, when it goes through a hydroelectric dam, could they get a bunch of lawyers and threaten us with 10,000 lawsuits that says, since that water's ours and you produce electricity with it, we want a portion of that electricity or money? Then Pinocchi's going to have to raise the electric rates to everybody in Montana. Folks, could that happen? Oh, after all, they threatened us with 10,000 lawsuits if we didn't give them the compact. Don't think for a second they won't do that again. We really have to think ahead. When you make a decision, you have to look at unintended consequences. Now, let's look at the Montana State Constitution. The water belongs to the state for the use of its people. Any judge that gets in the courtroom with this issue has to point their finger at the state constitution and say, sorry, the water belongs to the state of Montana for the use of its people. That's the end of the argument.
Didn't we do another show? Well, we did a show with Ken Miller, I think, on that, didn't we, Commissioner? What we did is
I gave you a copy of the Montana State Constitution,
I showed
and
it.
you presented it on the screen, and we read it together 3 times.
Right, exactly.
It's against the state constitution, people. And this legislature needs to get organized to say, what are we going to do? And I encourage Ron Hepp to get with these legislators, and there's a whole slew of them. And there's legislators that aren't in office anymore who fought it hard. You know, a guy I could think of to spearhead this whole movement would be Al Olszewski. We were side by side in 2015. And yeah, it's no secret. Apparently Daines likes the compact, and Greg Gianforte says he is, and then he tells people he's not, so we don't know where he is. But we have this supermajority, and the question has to come up, what can this legislature do to the compact? Here's an idea, folks. When we approved the compact and it went to Washington, D.C., they made a bunch of changes to it. According to Derek Skees, which I absolutely agree, if you make changes to it, it has to come back to the legislature and be voted on again with those changes.
Agreed.
I think that's one thing this legislature is going to have to do. Yep. And let me guarantee you something, folks. The reason they don't want to do that is because it won't pass.
That's right. You're right. You're right. You're speaking truth.
Okay?
You're throwing out truth.
Pinocci will be standing on a soapbox to say we cannot have this compact. There'll be great consequences if you do. Mark my words. Here's a consequence for all of us to think about. If this water compact goes through, basically $55 million of taxpayers' money from Montana will go to the Salish Kootenai. $2 billion. Oh, and somebody said they lowered it to $1.8 million. Oh, great accomplishment. But they forgot to say when they lowered it to $1.8 billion with the B, they're now giving them a bunch of property in the Flathead. The county tells me up there, the county commissioners say they won't get tax money from that. If you're going to love this, the county roads that go through the property they're going to give to the tribe, they're not going to take care of those roads. So the county commissioners say, we're going to have to go in and do snow removal, put the little reflectors up, fix the pavement, and we're not going to get a dime of property tax. So we're going to be in a situation where we're going to lose, $1 million every year.
That's not even including the bison range. That's not even, and I've had Skip Palmer on.
This is the growth of government.
Right, and the bison range is another one too. That's part of that whole deal. That's kind of that's not exactly, gets me kind of crossways. And we had Skip Palmer on numerous times to talk about that. So this is an issue that needs to be addressed. Did that answer your question, caller? Ron?
Well, Jim, I'd like to add
sure
a kind of a sidebar to this.
Sure.
When Greg Gianforte was running to fill the seat of Ryan Zinke, when Congressman Zinke at that time, and also I'd like to say that in a conversation with Ryan Zinke, Ryan said that the tribes never had no water claims east of the divide. And of course, that's clear when you look at the Blackfoot Treaty or even the Salish Kootenai's own Hellgate Treaty. But back to when Greg Gianforte was campaigning to get that seat that Zinke was vacating to become Secretary of the Interior. Gianforte said he opposed tribal off-reservation water rights. And he made that statement several times. And now today, this Senator Daines' Montana Water Rights Protection Act clearly gives the tribe off-reservation water rights. Where is Congressman Gianforte, who is now our governor-elect? Where does he stand on tribal off-reservation water rights?
I'm going to go ahead and
Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Pinocci. Go ahead and do you want to follow up with Ron's question there?
Well, what we've got to do is get the troops organized. We need Kate Vandenmore, Al Olszewski, people like Ron Hepp. And I think one of the first things we need to do is say, look, tremendous changes have taken place with the Water Compact in Washington, D.C. Now it has to come back to the Montana legislature, and we need to vent it. What that means, folks, is people need to testify for and against it, and then we have to vote on it again. That's what we need, I believe we need to do. And there could be a better answer than that, folks. I'm just throwing out a suggestion right now.
Well,
I encourage Ron Hepp and all those concerned about the compact to go to this legislature and demand that to happen. Demand some action to happen. And that's the best advice I can give. And I'll be right there next to him voicing those concerns. I want to give people an example of what happened to me about a year ago. I'm invited to this home. My family and I get there, and the lady of the house is very upset with me because she says, you're against the Water Compact and you're denying those promises made in the Hellgate Treaty. And she was in tears, and I mean, she was very upset with me. I listened to her carefully, and I said, let me explain the Hellgate Treaty. It doesn't say they get water rights. It is not in the Hellgate Treaty. Here's what's in the Hellgate Treaty. They have access to fishing and hunting. That's it. Now, let me tell you unintended consequences and take it a step further. If the Salish Kootenai get $2 billion and another $55 million, every tribe in the United States is going to file a lawsuit for water rights to get their $1 billion or $2 billion. We will be fighting this for the next 100 years. I believe tribes in Canada will be filing lawsuits to the Canadian government on water rights because it's free money. Unintended consequences, folks. We have to be so careful what we do. And the attorneys will be lined up for the next 100 years. Please, please fight this issue. That's the best way I can explain it.
I want to say before we go on to the next call, I just want to do a brief plug here for Montana Daily Gazette. Right now, we are taking applications for the 2021 statewide editorial advisory board. So if you're interested in being involved with Montana Daily Gazette on the advisory board and helping shape the news here in Montana, I would suggest you go to montanadailygazette.com and just scroll down and click on the story there, the article that says Montana Gazette now taking applications for 2021 statewide editorial advisory board. Before we take the next caller, let's flesh that out a little bit, Commissioner. I think that's a brilliant plan to get the sort of a community news organization going. And when I say that, everybody sees news all the time. People are around news all the time. Events happen every day here in Montana. Sadly, there's just not sometimes an ability to get it put out quickly. If we have a citizens advisory board, statewide editorial advisory board, I got to believe that we're going to be able to get some news out fast to the folks and keep everybody in Montana up to date and informed. Hopefully up to the minute. That's our goal. Any comments on the advisory board there, Commissioner?
Well, I'll tell you what. I tell people, be careful what you say. I challenge the callers that called in today to be part of that board. What I need, if a citizen's willing to call and make a call to say, I got a concern, I think I'm going to ask him to consider stepping up to an advisory board. I'd like to see some of those individuals run for office. You know, Dale Jackson, what was amazing that happened today is he says he's a lifetime Democrat and he's concerned about the Democrat Party. Folks, we have Democrats in office that absolutely say they support socialism. That is against every fiber of what our founding fathers set up. They are saying they want to change the entire country to communism. Now, folks, I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. This government is your government, and you get the government you deserve. I am shocked that states like Georgia and Pennsylvania voted as highly as they did for Biden. Actually, when I look at Montana, about 4 out of 10 people voted for Biden. I just find that amazing. Do you understand the changes you're talking about? It could end the energy industry as we know it. And your prices of electricity could triple, and it'll be less dependable because wind and solar is on and off all the time. Now, folks, I support wind and solar. I do. But you can't have it without baseload power that's on all the time.
Well, here's how they're going to mitigate that.
The number one complaint is electricity going off. I got to watch out for that.
Here's how they're going to mitigate that, Commissioner. They're not really worried about the power consumption because they're going to eliminate all of us that have supported President Trump. So they'll be half the population will be gone if they get their way. So, I mean, I think that's their long-term plan. At any rate, we've got other callers here on the line. Let's take another caller here and bring them up. Caller, you are live on the air. Please state your first name and what city you're calling from here in Montana. Caller?
I just don't want to be tied to this reservation stuff when we live on the reservation.
Caller, are you hearing that? Are you? Can you get closer to the phone? Are you? Hello?
You were Secretary of State to address the voter fraud. I didn't say. I was talking about the voter fraud in Missoula.
Hold on. Are you a previous caller? Are you calling back for? You sound like were you a previous caller that called earlier about the and had a question? Is that what happened? We got cut off. Is that right? Caller?
Well, it sounds like he's got some voter issues in the Missoula area. Please educate us to voter fraud or possible voter fraud in the Missoula area. Sure, tell us about that.
Go ahead, caller. Are you there? Okay. I don't know, Commissioner, what's going on with this caller, but that's okay.
Maybe he'll call back.
We'll call back. I have another caller waiting here in the line. Okay, caller, you've been waiting here for about 18, 20 minutes. You are live on the air. Please state your name and what city you're calling from here in Montana. Go ahead, caller. It's you. Caller, are you there? Okay. Well, I've done all I can do, Commissioner, to get the callers to answer the line here, but the last couple of callers haven't. They were there, but they didn't answer. So
Well, sometimes they got the phone muted, and then they don't know where the mute button is, and
so I think this gentleman's calling back. If you want to call in, folks, it's 563-999-3617. 563-999-3617. I think it's just the caller that we had before. We couldn't hear him properly. Caller, are you the one that called the first time on the show here earlier today? Caller? Hello? All right. Okay. Well, I keep calls and I keep asking him to answer, but I don't think he's understanding or hearing me very well right now. But let's talk about this if we can, Commissioner. We have and I know you highlight this in your article. You talk about this in your article here, and I had your article up here earlier. What do you make of this, the amount of people that are just piling in to Montana? I mean, we got some of the people here where there are between 30 and 40 people on a waiting list just to get one rental home around the area here. People are buying property, literally spending $500,000 on property or $300,000 or $400,000 on property and not even looking at the property. They're just making phone calls and picking and getting and buying these properties sight unseen in some cases. I've never seen anything like it before, Commissioner. Do you see that? I mean, that's a good thing. We want to bring more people in here, but Montana has always been pretty much a small state. I mean, there's only like 1 million people. We only passed 1 million people here since I've been living here for the last few years. Are we ready for this in the infrastructure-wise? Are we ready for this type of influx of maybe an increase in 15, 20% of the population here in the next year? Is that something you think we're ready for?
Well, let's talk about energy first. Montana does not generate enough electricity to meet Montana's needs. And you're absolutely correct. You can talk to any real Some homes are listed for less than an hour. We've never seen a push to buy Montana properties, I don't think in our history, as we have since the coronavirus started. I think there's lots of things to look at as to why this has happened. The United States looked at the coronavirus map, and clearly Montana was a place that really didn't have a problem with it as other states did. And people are obviously going to say, you know, that's where I want to live, right? Another thing that happened is millions of jobs just vanished, and people couldn't pay their bills. They couldn't pay rent. They couldn't make their car payment because their restaurant job is over, or they simply couldn't go to the office because of the coronavirus. And they're in a situation that says, well, that's it. What are we going to do? Well, if we're going to move and find a place that maybe is better than where we're at, Montana became an obvious time to say, well, the heck with it. Let's move there where the cost of living is cheaper, and Montanans seem to be working more than other states, and this became attractive. I've talked to some of these individuals that have come in, and they're really not prepared for Montana. You know, folks in Montana don't understand. If you live in L.A. your whole life, born and raised, you've never seen cold weather. You've never seen freezing temperature. You've never had a bucket of water outside, and when you get up in the morning, it turned to ice. They've lived their entire life without that. Now they're moving to Montana, and it can get to 40 below. Their car's not going to start, and you're going to have a new experience in life. These people are going to need a tremendous amount of help, and they also need to understand what Montana values are and what, you know, you're now going to pay property taxes where maybe you've always rented your whole life. You may have been a Democrat your whole life because you've never paid property taxes. Now that they're going to get a property tax bill, they might start looking at the Republican Party a little more seriously. And, that's why, folks, if you look at the map of where the Democrat votes are, they're where homes are piled on top of each other in skyscrapers, and they don't have property taxes. Once you own a little land and you're growing a garden and you got to pay property taxes, you're going to start being a little more conservative than you were when you've rented your whole life. So I think we're going to have to, you know, look out for our neighbors, say hi, and, you know, start saying, hey, we got some political things in front of us, and you should be able to grow the garden you want and, you know, do what you want with your land. Currently in Sun River, because we're in the floodplain, I can't put in a lawn shed or build a building, yet they charge me property taxes. In fact, they raise my property taxes while they tell me I can't build on my land. Now, if I put a turbine in Gibson Reservoir, I can stop the flooding, and FEMA's got to change those floodplain lines. Folks, we got to get involved. I got so many things to work on that I can't possibly get it all done, and I need your help.
Yeah, no kidding, because I think that people have been running things for the last few years just haven't been doing their job, or we wouldn't have so much work to do. We've got that another caller's calling back. I think this is a previous caller that maybe had their phone on mute or something, their line on mute. Let's try to bring them back again. Caller, you are live on the air. Please state the city you're calling from and your name, please, your first name.
Well, this is Dale calling back.
Hi, Dale.
The reason I am is I'm not on my computer. I'm listening to you guys on the phone.
Okay.
And can I say something else?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Okay. The reason I voted for Donald Trump, and I'm a Democrat, I voted for Donald Trump. The reason I did was that he's doing what I've been saying for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years. He's doing what I've been saying. So if I hadn't voted for him, I'd been a hypocrite. And he's been doing a very, very good job. And like I said, he's doing exactly. And like I said, he's done a very good job. So anyway, I just wanted to pass that on. And like I say, if I had voted for him, I'd been a hypocrite.
Well, we're working on getting an app. Dale, we're working on getting an app where you can just hit your app and you can listen to the show on your app, so you don't have to call in on the line. But we're just again, as I stated before, some of these things I'm just sort of, I'm the whole production crew and editor and everything here, so sometimes things don't get done as quickly as I'd like. But
Sure.
that is our goal, is to have a phone app where you can just load the app on your phone, click the button, and the show comes up, and you can listen to the show. Matter of fact, it's for sure going to happen in the next couple of weeks.
Oh, there we go.
So appreciate it.
But I'm sure somebody else wants to get on.
Indeed, I'll go ahead and put you on hold though, and let you listen to the show on your phone if you'd like, and I just won't pick up your call. That's all. We'll just do it that way.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Dale. Okay, Commissioner Pinocci, you're welcome. Thank you. I want to talk about this if I can, Commissioner. Let's swing back around again, because I know you are you're involved in the Montana Sports Shooting Association. Pardon me. I think you're the vice chair of that organization, if I remember. Let's talk about this here from this article from Montana Daily Gazette. It says that Biden website, swing back around, because this is really important, folks. I mean, this is a really important piece of legislation, or this is the topic, I should say. Biden website shows the bold game plan to strip Americans of their guns. And what some of the things they're talking about, Commissioner Pinocci, is hold gun manufacturers accountable, ban the sale and use of assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, which they call them assault weapons, and they misnomer these things, or these things improperly. Reduce the stockpiling of weapons, close the hate crime loophole, end the online sale of firearms and ammunitions. So basically, we don't have to go through all of them, but my point is, if the Dems get control again, they're going to come and try to take our guns. And I know that's something that's very near and dear to you, Commissioner, because of your love for sports, sports and outdoors, activities and freedom. Not to mention the fact that you're a member. You're the vice chair, right, of the Montana Sports Shooting Association, the co-director, I think. So, what's your thoughts about again, if we can just swim back around, because it's a very important topic in my mind. What's your thoughts about the Biden plan to take our guns away, Commissioner? You think that's going to work out very well for Montanans? You think they're just going to give their guns up?
Well, it's a great question, and let me give you a little history with Commissioner Pinocci and the Second Amendment. I was highly involved with the NRA on trying to protect our gun rights, and I started a program where a lot of Montanans own guns. We have more guns per household, I think, than anywhere else in the world, and a lot of Democrats were gun owners, and I was trying to educate the Democrat gun owners in Montana that when an anti-gun bill comes up, or a bill to affect your gun rights, 99% of the time it is from a Democrat. And Charlton Heston, who at the time was the president of the NRA, Conrad Burns, our U.S. Senator, introduced me, and I told him about this problem and how I was going to the gun shows educating people that when you see an anti-gun bill, let's take a look at it and see who introduced it. And Charlton Heston thought that was a fantastic idea. So Charlton Heston and I put together a group, a Second Amendment committee within the Republican Party, and I started exposing gun bills around the country. There was a gun bill in California that would outlaw all handguns in the entire state of California. We're talking about millions and millions of handguns would have to be destroyed. Now, the bill didn't pass. It was, about 15 years ago, but it was close. And the key is people don't realize that we have lots of anti-gun bills that don't pass. Now, let's talk about the dishonesty of the Democrat Party. We don't have to go very far to expose it. Let's look at Governor Bullock. Just a few months ago, Governor Bullock was running to be president of the United States. He was in the Democrat Party primary, where 20 people were running for president, and Governor Bullock was trying to desperately up his position from 16th to 5th place. So here's what Governor Bullock said. He would vote and support for legislation that would outlaw semi-automatic guns or rifles. He wasn't very clear. People, that would destroy millions of guns in the United States. Well, when he lost the race and didn't become the Democrat hopeful, he decided to run for Senate in Montana. And they spent millions of dollars saying, Governor Bullock will protect your gun rights. He is absolutely the defender of the Second Amendment, just days after he said he'd ban all semi-automatics. Here's the truth, folks. If a Democrat was going to run for office, honestly, here's what he'd say. I'm going to take away your guns. I'm going to raise your taxes. I'm going to grow government, and I'm going to take rights away from you. If they said that, they'd never get elected. So here's what the typical Democrat says. I'm for lower taxes. I'm going to help you on health care. I care about your gun rights. And then after they're elected, they start twisting their mustache to say, here's what we're going to do. When Biden was running for president, he did not say much about taking away your guns. But now that he's won, they're putting an entire team together on how they're going to restrict your gun rights. Folks, remember what I said? This government is your government, and you get the government you deserve. You better start paying attention on who you vote for. And in Montana, 4 out of 10 people voted for Biden, and I guarantee you half of those people own guns. I guarantee you half of those people are going to complain when the price of electricity goes up. I guarantee you half of those people are going to complain when their taxes go up. Now, can you explain to me why people can't see through that?
Well, it's because of the news organizations and those so-called news organizations in Montana and other places have been derelict in their duty to get the truth out to the folks, man. I'm
sorry to offend anyone, but I'm going to go a step further. It is the derelict duty of the voter. You are not paying attention to what's happening with your government. If you want to go down the road of socialism and wind up a communist country, that's what is happening. And the majority of people voted for that. All right, you get the government you deserve. The problem is the people of this country are not paying attention to who they're voting for. Truly, the press lies. No question about it. Here was the number one lie they did. They had Trump way behind in the polls. In Montana, they said Governor Bullock was in the lead over Senator Daines by up to 5 points. Now, can't these people come forward and admit that they lied to try to skew the numbers?
No.
Because they know this. If we can say, oh, the Democrats ahead, this gains votes, because a lot of people want to vote for the winner. That's why they do that, folks. They lie in the polls because they know that skews the vote. Now, are you demanding that these polls that are wrong, we don't listen to them again? What's their punishment? There is none. Folks, you got to get a handle on this. This country's slipping through your fingers. What Biden is going to do is he's going to make radical changes. Radical.
Well,
and your gun rights absolutely are at risk. There are Democrats out there that want to outlaw all guns, all of them.
Well,
and why do we have the Second Amendment, folks? To keep the government in check. That is the design of the Second Amendment. I can't believe how many people say the Second Amendment is for hunting. It has nothing to do with hunting. If you have a government that tries to take over the people, take your rights away, take your right to vote away, it was designed to stand against your government. Now, how many elected officials are willing to get on the phone and say that? I'm the only one I know of that makes that loud and clear. And by the way, I'm the vice president of Montana Shooting Sports Association.
Right, I knew you.
And I've been working with them for 20 years. Montana Shooting Sports Association has passed more pro-gun laws on a state level than any gun group in the history of the United States or the world. Montana Shooting Sports Association is who gave you the concealed carry. I've got people telling me we're a concealed carry since the state began. That's wrong. We've only been able to carry concealed in the last 20 years. And when I was next to Gary Marbett arguing this, the Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association stood against it. When we were trying to pass the law so you could have a concealed carry, here's what the Sheriff's Office said. the Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association testified this testimony. If we give Montanans a concealed carry, they will shoot each other over a parking spot. That's what they said. We testified that when a concealed carry passes another state, everybody's very responsible. You want to hear some interesting facts, folks? To my knowledge, no concealed carry person in Montana has been charged with a felony. We have over maybe 40,000. We only have 900 law enforcement officers. Now, trust me, I'm pro-law enforcement, absolutely. But there's a few cases where they've committed a felony. The bottom line is, my concealed carry folks that number over 40 or 50,000 are outperforming our law enforcement on committing felonies. And remember, when we were trying to pass the law, the Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association testified against our right to have a concealed carry. Today, the Sheriff's Office gets millions of dollars of income from concealed carry holders. And they make it sound like it was their idea. But the bottom line is the public doesn't know these facts. And when I try to educate them, they're like, wow, I had no idea. That's because you're not involved with this issue.
Well,
this government is your government, and you get the government you deserve.
This is a good time to bring it. It's appropriate that you mention that, because I'm looking here at a video here in Italy, Genova, Italy, where they're in the 18th day of lockdown protests, and now the police, it looks like, have taken off their helmets and have joined the protesters in solidarity. I think that there's an awakening going on worldwide, Commissioner. I think you look at the Trump rallies where there's 60 and 70,000 people seemingly at these rallies. Some people are waiting for days and days. I think that the evidence of malfeasance is more available for people than ever. The information out there is, I think, the stuff that's not censored is more voluminous than it's ever been before. Do you see what I'm seeing here, Commissioner? It's a groundswell of awakening going on, not only across the world, but across America and in Montana. The latest results of I think in Great Falls, the Republicans swept every seat. I mean, I don't think that's unheard of, right? People that are asleep don't do that. People that are sheep do that. Or, people that are sheep don't do that. People that are awake do that. Do you see an awakening like I'm seeing going across the country, or not so much for where you're at, Commissioner?
No, I want to answer that.
Sure.
And I'm going to go back to MSSA, and then I'm going to get right to the heart of your question. And by the way, my family's from Italy. If you join me on Facebook, lots of Pinocchis there. My parents took me back to Italy, where I spent time with my uncle on his vineyard. So I'm real familiar with problems in Italy. But let's talk about MSSA. A few years ago, if your house was being robbed and you hurt the guy robbing your house, you could go to jail and you could be sued. That's what the law was in Montana. Basically, the law said this: if you hurt a guy attacking you in your home, you are guilty and you have to prove you're innocent. That was the law. Montana Shooting Sports Association come up with the self-defense bill, which actually turned that around. If you're attacked in your home, the attacker's guilty and has to prove he's innocent. That was the most substantial bill, I think, for the Second Amendment ever passed in the history of Montana.
Like Castle Doctrine.
It happened a few years ago.
It's like the Castle Doctrine.
Again, the Montana Shooting Sports Association had to battle the Sheriff's Department, which said this: you can't let the homeowner take the law in his own hands. What are you talking about? Right now, the criminal has all the rights. So now we change that, right? And people are saying, why wasn't that done 50 years ago? So Montana can certainly see something and make a change. And we start seeing problems in other countries. In Italy, if you are being robbed or the robber kills your wife and you kill the robber, you will go to prison. They've got the craziest self-defense laws. And I keep telling my relatives, I need to go to Italy and start straightening out the laws they have there. The other countries are starting to wake up to freedom. People get in a rowboat and risk their life to come to this country. If Biden gets the way he wants, they'll be getting in the rowboat going back to their old country. And we have to start understanding that freedom isn't free, and you got to be involved. And countries that are starting to figure this out are making great gains, and it's like the United States is going backwards. I guess that's the best way I can explain it.
No, I agree. I think that I think you're onto something here, Commissioner. I'm just looking at the election results. Apparently, they're coming out now and saying that in Michigan they're going to hand count all the ballots because they found so much fraud there. I think this whole fraudulent voting scheme by the left wasn't thought out very well. Here's what I think happened. I think that so many Trump supporters showed up and so many votes were cast for Trump that it overwhelmed even their greatest chance to steal the election. So they had to go to unusual measures to do it. And I think they dumped a whole lot of ballots on there. But it looks like it's all coming down here, Pinocci. It looks like all of the information's coming out. They've got people from the actually voting machine company that did all of the shenanigans. They're coming out now. Their whistleblowers are stepping up, talking to Giuliani. I see this is going to damage if this comes out, and what I think is going to come out, Commissioner. You're going to find, I think, this is going to damage the Democrat. The damage to the Democrat Party may be irreparable if they find out that they were behind all of this. We already know that Biden was really basically on the take with communist China. I may be wrong, but I don't see a long-term plan for the Democrats to exist in more than a few more years. Do you think I'm off base?
No, you're spot on, and here's what the listeners need. I always try to remember to give the listeners something to do. Listeners, this is your chance to get involved with your legislative session, with the control that the Republican Party has in Montana. And we did. In Great Falls, we took every single Democrat seat. I've never seen it in 30 years. Now that we've done that, go get involved with the government and get the laws changed. People, we could do away with property taxes if you wanted. Just go get passionate about what you're passionate about, get involved, and let's go make some great changes.
That's right. We got one more.
What we could do right now is look at the voter fraud problems that we're going to uncover and change the laws in Montana to ensure that doesn't happen here, saying Montana is stepping up to the plate to be the role model for the rest of the United States to follow to ensure voter fraud doesn't happen again. We got to do away with ballot harvesting. In my opinion, we cannot have an absentee ballot except for those that need it, who don't live here or they're medically impaired. We got to change those rules because there's no question in Montana, people are getting 4 or 5 ballots mailed to their home. This leaves us wide open for fraud. We have to assess these issues. We got to get the Secretary of State to start doing their job. And we've got to start making these changes, and we have the opportunity to do it. But people, I'm giving you this to do. This government is your government. Make it the government you want. Get involved and make it happen.
Commissioner, we got one more call that's coming in. We'll take one more call. I've got another conference call that I got to jump on here right after the show, like literally right after the show. So we might have to cut it short here, just a couple of minutes. We're going to take one more phone call here, and then we'll go ahead and close out the show and give you the opportunity to give out your websites and how more people can get involved. But we'll take one more caller. Caller, you are live on the air. Please state your first name and where you're calling from. Go ahead, caller. You're up. Caller, no more chance. Okay. I guess they didn't hear me, or they're on hold or something. And maybe I have to start letting people know, hey, this is your first 3 letters of your phone number, because when so many people pile up, I've never been on the other end. I don't know what it's like to call in and what they're hearing. But if you hear me say you're online, caller, just go ahead and speak, and then we can hear you. I think we can hear you. Commissioner Pinocci, we just come to the end of the show here. It was a great 2-hour, except for the little foul-up in the beginning with my commercial that got out of line. Other than that, we do appreciate you so much coming on the broadcast here. Let people know where people can find out more about you. If you want to give out any phone numbers, if you want to give out any websites or anything like that, email addresses. I know you're very accessible. I know you always are very open to anybody calling you and asking you questions. So I'm going to turn it over to you and go ahead and give out that information for folks that want to know more about you, Commissioner.
Well, first off, I want to encourage everybody to join Montana Shooting Sports Association. I think they charge $35 or $100 for a life membership. If you have a concealed carry, you owe it to Montana Shooting Sports Association. Everyone who has a concealed carry should be a member of Montana Shooting Sports Association. Call Gary Marbett, 549-1252. Join today. My home phone number, 406-264-5391. And folks, if you don't agree with me, if you're mad at me, please call me. Let's talk about it. I listen carefully. Every now and then, someone who's just furious with me teaches me something. I'm always willing to listen. I love this state. I care about Montanans. I'm born and raised here, and I want to hear from you. Jim, thank you.
Commissioner Pinocci, always great to have you on the show. Thank you very much, sir. We're just out of time here. We're going to go ahead and let you go. I really appreciate Commissioner Pinocci coming on. He's always been so very, very gracious to come on the broadcast here and let us know what's going on in his mind and give us inside information on, Public Service Commission stuff, and we always appreciate that. And folks, we just are out of time today. We really appreciate all the callers calling in. We're going to make the show easier to find. We're just sort of transitioning over here, and if you go to montanagazetteradio.com, just bookmark that, because eventually all of the places you can watch the show will be listed on that one page. We're going to be putting the Blog Talk link over there right now, and as I said, we'll come up with the app from the App Store, so you just have to hit the button and you can listen to the show. But all that's in progress, and we're working towards that. Be patient with us. We'll have everything for sure in place by the time the legislative session starts, and I'll actually probably be in Helena quite a bit, I think, over the legislative session, doing on-the-spot reporting there, boots on the ground. I'll probably be doing my radio show some days right from Helena. That's the plan anyway. So a lot of great things going on here in Montana. Certainly if you're conservative, if you're a liberal, hey, listen, come on over. Come on over. Leave the dark side. Come on over to the white hats. Come on over to the Patriots. We'll welcome you in as long as you're not a knucklehead and you stand for freedom and liberty. We'll welcome you right in. We'll forgive you and bring you right on over. Just don't try to change things. Just don't be a knucklehead, as I said, and everything will be fine. So, it's all hope's not lost if you're a liberal. We're not the misogynist, racist that you might think we are. So give us a chance here. We all need to get along. We can't be beating each other over the head with a brick, right? Because we're in a hat that you don't like. We just can't live like that. We know this, folks. So thanks so much for looking in here. Appreciate you supporting the broadcast. MontanaGazetteRadio.com, MontanaGazetteRadio.com, or MontanaDailyGazette.com, and of course the flagship Northwest Liberty News. Again, thanks so much for looking in today. I'm James White, your host. We'll be back tomorrow, another show. Until then, I'd like to say bye now.